It actually feels like a really back road. This is effectively a one-lane track. Now towards the northern part of the Bainskloof Pass, and again the height restrictions are shown here. Look at all the aloes. Yeah, aloe blooming time is starting now, and such beautiful plants. You can immediately see after crossing now here at the summit, we're actually going up a little bit more, ascending still a little bit, but I think we are soon going to only descend. But you can immediately see a bit more rugged mountains on this side of the pass. Now, on this side of the pass, the road actually follows along with the Witte River. So this river is, I suppose, what made this passage through the mountains possible. And I can just say that when the rain comes really hard during the months of July and especially August, the conditions you see here is completely different. Then there are waterfalls everywhere you look in these mountains, and some of these waterfalls and streams of water run across the road. So we've seen this and also put this in a video on our other channel, the Back Road Chronicles channel, the one I do with my wife Annelie. So if you want to have a look, I will put the link to a video, and I will also include a clip here for you to get a sense of what it looks like if the water just runs across the road. Please go and have a look at that video if you want to see more of this, and of course if you like what you see, please consider subscribing to Back Road Chronicles as well. We would appreciate it. But today the conditions are perfect. There's not even a breath of wind that I can see. I think it is a bit of a bonus to have this in the winter. You will not always have these kind of days. And of course, I'm doing this trip with my trusted Honda CRF 300 Rally. This is the same motorcycle that I've done all my previous trips and the previous 4 series that I've posted videos on. I just love this bike. I think I've said it many times in previous videos. When I get onto this bike, I just get the sense that I can ride any road, and I like the confidence that that is giving me. But it is also a bike that is quite comfortable on the road, and if you are not interested to ride the fastest bike, but you are fine to just cruise at say 100 kilometers or so on the open road, then this bike is perfectly good for it. I think it is a very nice cruising bike. Yeah, but just look at, you can see how the road is now carving here through the rocks. Yeah, how difficult it must have been to just build this road when 1849, when they started. I mean, with the kind of machinery and equipment and so on you had, I suppose there's a lot of hard manual labor that had to go into this. Although this was built by convicts, their role in getting this pass built is recognized there on a plaque as well. Yeah, and it is sad to think that there are 3 people that actually lost their lives in the building of this pass. Yeah, here there are rock faces right up to the road, and look at how this rock is balanced. Sure, it almost looks like it should not stay like that, but obviously it is staying. Yeah. Okay, here's another part where some obvious hard labor was probably required to just get through these rocks. Bell Rocks, the name. So many parts of the pass, of course, has got particular names. And that is Bell Rocks. A national monument. This is what this pass is. That was now quite a nice leg stretch and sip of water, and wow, beautiful views down there to the Witte River. But let's continue with our route here downhill on the northern side of the Bainskloof Pass. This is Duckrus Pulpit. So this is where the overhang of the rock is determining the maximum height of vehicles that can ride this pass. Although the northern side is definitely more rugged and obviously it would have been a more difficult road to build, it is also quite a long descent, one going continuously downhill, but one can see how the river is crisscrossing through this mountain to open up the valley a bit there to the front. No, this is highly recommended with any vehicle, car, motorcycle, bicycle. One should just ride this pass for the fun of it, but on a motorcycle this is absolute heaven. I think we are making a crossing of the Witte River here in front. It's called Borchert's Bridge. So it is so narrow that one actually have to stop just to check on whether there's some cars coming, but it all looks good, so let's go. No, it's maybe not the Witte River, it only looks like a small stream that probably connects down there with the Witte River. Here we can see the Witte River quite well because we have now descended quite a bit. But you can also see remnants of flooding down here. I mean, many old trees and branches still covering this area because last winter there was lots of rain and this area flooded, and it also caused a little bit of damage to the pass and it actually had to close for a while. So this is quite a prominent flooding area, but probably understandable because it comes through such a narrow gorge almost here next to the Bainskloof Pass, but at least here it broadens out a bit. But we've now probably reached the lowest part of the northern side of the Bainskloof Pass, and the valley is now opening up here in front, so we will soon be out of Bainskloof Pass. But what a ride! Oh, this is a great ride. Now here we are crossing another part of the river, probably joining up with the Witte River, and this is particularly the place where damage often happens, so I suppose it's difficult to prepare for that. Unfortunate. The very next town that we will pass through is the town of Woolsley. Well, if you just continue with this tar road, it's tar roads all the way to Woolsley, but you know me, I'm looking for the adventurous roads, and I think it's been a bit enough tar roads riding for now, so I've mapped out a route to take us through a bit of dirt roads. We should get to the turn of that dirt road very soon. Yeah, so we've now reached the turn off to a road which I believe will become dirt road. Let's see. Okay, this first part certainly is still, well, tar road, which is not a very good condition. Tar road with potholes. So the waypoint that I put in on my Google Maps is the Twin Peaks Organic Farm. So if you want to follow this route, that is the waypoint to get off the main tar roads. And maybe it is just good at this point to remind you that for every trip I do paste a link to the Google Maps route that I did for this trip on the video description. So if you want to go and see exactly where my trip took me in this video, you can simply go to the video description and copy and paste the link to that Google Maps trace route and paste it in a browser, and you will see it. I try to do this as accurate as possible. But yeah, I've done it also for all other videos. If you are watching some of the other videos, you can go and have a look at those maps. I think sometimes it must be frustrating looking at a video and then maybe seeing me making turns left, right and center and not knowing where I'm going, but that route will show you. Yo, here it is certainly becoming a bit more rough, but dirt roads, yes, adventure. Just look how beautiful this is. Here through the vineyards, so the last of the autumn colored leaves of the vineyards is to be seen here. Actually quite beautiful. But yeah, I have no idea what the condition of this road is, but so far so good. How good is this? Just getting a taste of some of the dirt roads now. I'm planning quite a number of interesting trips over the next 3 days. This is just the very first trip on the very first day, and this is not the one that probably will have the most dirt roads or even necessarily the most spectacular dirt roads, but it is so nice to get a taste as well. And as I said, the Honda CRF 300 Rally is built for these roads, and I know it will be able to take it in its stride. I just always say it's more a case of whether the rider of the CRF Rally will be able to manage it. There's certainly a bit of a sandy patch here. But yo, this area is beautiful, beautiful. We are really riding amongst the mountains. Everywhere you look, there are just mountains in any direction. Yo, here the sand is catching me out a bit. Yeah, you will remember from my previous series, the West Coast series, I went to the Sandveld. That is the area of Redlinghuis, Aurora, those areas, and I was caught out a little bit by the roads I took where there were lots and lots of sandy road, and I really had to dig myself in, and in some parts I had to ride in first gear for a long time at about walking pace. So I really don't like sandy roads. I'm not so used to riding them, and my bike is probably also not geared that well in terms of inflating and deflating tires. But if you want to go and see a little bit of my struggles there, please go and have a look. But this road, yeah, doesn't have sand of that caliber. Yeah, the road is a bit sandy, but seeing that there's been some rain, it is not very loose sand. It's more, there's some moisture in the sand, so it's a bit more tightly compacted and easy to ride. It actually feels like a really back road. This, I mean, it's a small, this is effectively a one-lane track. Now the road seems to be making quite a sharp turn to the right here in the front. Just see. It seems like farm buildings here, but we need to go right here. Now we are really onto a sandy farm track here. This is great. There is a warning here, cross at own risk. It's probably due to flood damage or so. One can see here there's a bridge that does not look in a good condition. Not sure what it should look like. I suppose the water can easily go across this road during the winter time, but for now it is good. And continuing to crisscross here through the vineyards. And suddenly it seems we are back on a tar road. Yeah, indeed. We are back on tar. So that was maybe the end of the dirt roads for now. But what a fun little ride. Just to give us the first taste of some dirt roads that will definitely come in the remainder of the series. For the road now going to Woolsley and then on to Tulbagh, I think we will remain on tar. Yeah, the mountains are amazingly beautiful. Just look at this. So we're now quite steadily making our way to the town of Wolseley, only about 7.5 kilometers away. But yeah, the approach to this town is certainly dramatic. Yeah, maybe just a little bit of background on the town of Wolseley. So Wolseley was already established in 1875. And it was originally called Ceres Road Station because it represented a very important railway junction here in this part of the world. And yeah, in 1910 it was renamed to Wolseley after Field Marshal Sir Garnet Wolseley. So that is where the name Wolseley comes from. Okay, so this is now a busy main road on a Saturday morning. I've got a particular place that I just want to make a quick stop here. Actually not in Wolseley, but just outside of Wolseley, and this is a blockhouse here. I always find that history quite interesting. Of course, the Anglo-Boer War took place in the year 1899 to 1902, and many of these blockhouses were built by the English to protect strategic things like a railway track or especially a railway bridge, because of course they needed those things not to be damaged to, well, be able to transport their goods and probably to make sure that their war effort is not disrupted by any sabotage. And as I said, Wolseley is an important railway town, so I suspect this blockhouse is then probably also built at the railway bridge. Oh, here are some railway bridges. I can already see the blockhouse there on the right hand side, but it's a bit far from the road. I'm not sure. I wanted to have a closer look, but there are two bridges, so there's the blockhouse there in the orchard. But it seems like the GPS is taking me even further, because there's a second bridge. Maybe there's another blockhouse. I didn't even know this. Maybe there are two blockhouses in Wolseley. Indeed, here on the left hand side is another blockhouse. So this is interesting. It's very close to the road, so one should be able to get a very good view on this blockhouse. So let's just make a stop at this blockhouse. There were many of these blockhouses built. I cannot now remember the exact number, whether it's 500 or maybe 2,000, I'm not sure. But of this particular style, there were many built. And these are quite sturdy and strong buildings. And I think they were built, of course, with the purpose of protecting strategic points. And in this case, in Wolseley, to protect these bridges of the railway. Yeah, I think it gives us a look into history more than 125 years ago. So of course a prominent feature of all these blockhouses are these holes where the rifles could be pointed through, and then of course also these little areas that comes out so that you can have a better look in all directions, but everywhere there's places for rifles. And of course there's a few levels here, and then the one at the top is probably providing you with the best views. So this is the entrance. So they say here on the board these blockhouses were built between 1900 and 1901. Yes, during the war, 1899 to 1902, protecting the railway bridges from Boer attacks. Yeah. This is what it's about. They say these blockhouses could house 20 men with water, ammunition and supplies stored on the ground floor. The living area was the first floor and was accessible by a retractable ladder. And the top floor was the observation deck over the countryside. Oh, here they say only 441 of these stone blockhouses were built, and a few have survived. They were very effective barriers and few saw any action. So yeah, there was probably more a deterrent than anything else. 441 of these. But you see them all across South Africa. This one has been preserved quite well. Just shows how well they were built. Yeah, so this is quite an interesting look back at history, but let's continue. These are the blockhouses, or one of the blockhouses just outside of Wolseley. Let's head for Tulbagh. Tulbagh is our final destination for this trip, and yeah, I think a very pretty town to end this first ride. I just parked the Honda CRF 300 Rally here next to the road. There was not really quite a nice parking place. You will recall from previous videos that I do talk about the bike quite a bit. In this video I'm not going to talk about any new modifications I did. I just would like to remind you that in the West Coast series of trips I discuss many things about what I do to do the footage. Some of the things that I did introduce in those videos are the cameras that I use to take the footage. Also, how do I do the sound in the helmet so that it comes out quite clear. I introduced you to the drone. The drone's got a name, Goga. So if you want to see about the drone, go and look at the West Coast series of videos. And I also introduced some of these things about the aspects of the clamps and so on that I use, and why it is used. One other aspect that I introduced was also what I do for chain maintenance while on a ride. Now the chain is still looking good on this trip because there's almost no dirt road riding that's been done, but the nifty little tool called the snapjack that I use to lift the bike to do the chain maintenance. But for now, let's go to Tulbagh. Oh, that was now a very interesting look at the blockhouse. So I actually have to make a U-turn here because we want to go through Wolseley again on our route to our final destination for today, and this is Tulbagh. So let's continue. Yeah, so we've now passed through the town of Woolsley, and now we are linking on here onto the R46. That is the road that will take us to Tulbagh. So we just need to make the turn here. So this is the road that connects also Tulbagh to Ceres. So this is quite a busy road, and we will have to stay on this road for about 8 kilometers or so before we can make the turn off to Tulbagh. We are now approaching the turn off to Tulbagh from the R46. Yeah, and already here there is a sign, a board saying Tulbagh. I think what is so significant about this is the date. It already says 1699, so that is long ago, and I think this is what makes Tulbagh such an interesting town, is how far back the history does go here in Tulbagh. So from this turn off it's just over 5 kilometers or so to get to the town of Tulbagh, so it's just a short hop from the R46. But when one rides here, you do get a sense of how the Tulbagh Valley is surrounded by mountains, and gives this town a little bit of a special isolated spot where it is situated. I'm actually looking forward to just exploring the Tulbagh Valley a little bit and now see more of the town of Tulbagh. So there in front you can see the main road of Tulbagh. But yeah, maybe just a little bit of history. Initially this town was called Rode Zand, referring to the red color of probably the soil in this fertile valley. Later on it was called the Land van Waveren, and then in 1804 it got its current name, Tulbagh, after the Cape Governor at the time, who was called Ryk Tulbagh. Let's just make a turn here now. Probably one of the most important buildings in this town is the Oude Kerk, or the Old Church, which is here at the top of Church Street. And here you can see this church. Just look at it. Now that building looks genuinely old, and indeed it is. This church was already built in 1743, and today it is the oldest church in South Africa that still has its original structure. This is built here at the top of Church Street, and Church Street contains many historical buildings. What is so significant about these buildings in Church Street is that it represents the street in South Africa that contains the highest concentration of historic buildings, Edwardian, Victorian and Cape Dutch buildings in the country. I find that extraordinary. I made a stop here next to the Oude Kerk in Tulbagh. This is a special church, as I indicated. It is not used as a church anymore today. It's actually a museum. But what is extraordinary about this church is that it was built already in 1743. The authentic oldness of this comes through naturally. So let's go and have a look. So this little house here was actually the place where, when there were funerals held, where the bodies were kept for the funerals, and these days it's used as an office. There you can view the church. It's got a thatched roof, no steeple, but still it is the original form that it had in 1743. Beautiful. I'm not going to enter it now, but I will show you some of the images inside of what this church looked like when I visited it the previous time. You can see the bell hanging there, and the whole churchyard is then also surrounded by this beautiful white wall. And at the back of the church is the cemetery of the church, and the early ministers of this church, I think there's 3 of them, are buried in the church, so their graves are on the floor of the church. Well, this brings me now to the end of this first trip of the new series. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. The early morning departure there from Wellington, starting at Lady Loch Bridge, and then of course looking at the church in Wellington and also riding the spectacularly beautiful Bainskloof Pass. I hope you enjoyed this trip with me, also passing by the blockhouse there in Woolsley and now ending in Tulbagh. But this trip is definitely continuing. I will depart now from Tulbagh very shortly, and I will bring this to you in the next video. Thank you very much for joining me on this trip. If you liked it, please give me a nice thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And then until the next video, keep well and bye bye.